YouTube members, TubeLug members, and AFOLs. Builder13 here again. This is a little mock that I've been working on for, quite a while. If you include me trying to just think about it laying in bed, I've been working on this one a really long time. This is a steam traction engine. This is the vehicle that replaced the horse and plow. This vehicle was used from probably 1880 to up to World War II. It was brought back. Of course, the gasoline took on for a while, but they brought them back during World War II just because they didn't need gasoline. All you need is a water source and something to burn. Firewood, coal, you name it. Railroad ties. If it can burn, I've seen them even burn on sawdust and straw. Just anything that can burn, though, and of course fuel oil, propane. Now modern. This one's an interesting long barrel version I made. So the tank isn't very long, so the water makeup would have to be significant. But it's a traction engine, so this was not made to drive through the field. Of course, it doesn't have chevron paddles or anything like that. This is to drive down a dirt road in tandem with another tractor of the same likeness, and pull a set of plows or a harvester in between the two using a pulley system. I didn't put a pulley on it. I put this worm gear on it, but it would systematically pull back and forth, and the set of plows would reverse direction and they'd plow a field. So they'd plow one direction, then pull up 10 feet or however wide the plow was, and then the other one would pull the other direction, and it would go back and forth. And so one would be pulling, and the other one would throw itself in neutral and go back and forth. Of course, steam powered. And there'd be a series of gentlemen running it, probably 2 or 3. There's not many around. I'd say there's probably less than 200 or 300 around. Those that survived were hidden or left derelict, and things grew around them because what happened is during World War I, or they were using them, but those that weren't being used were scrapped for steel for battleships, and then in World War II they were being scrapped and used for tanks and jeeps and everything because there's so much steel in them. The same thing happened to the steam engine for trains. They were scrapped because there's so much steel and brass in making one of these. The chains you can see that are hooked to the front wheel, that's how it steered. It just had a pivot point in the front, and it had chains that pulled from one direction to the other using a steering wheel or 2 levers. So that was the most rudimentary way of steering it. I have not even seen one that used rack and pinion. There may have been one, but that was a technology that they still hadn't used. The boiler system is not a recovery steam system, so the steam that comes out the stack here was lost. It didn't recover like the steam-powered cars at the same time period. The Stanley steamers and the other car manufacturers, I guess Stanley was a loss vehicle. White recycled the steam, but this lost its steam. What it boiled off, they had to make up, so there was no recovery. There was a firebox. They didn't necessarily have to drag a firebox behind them because they're always next to their source. A train, its efficiency is its ability not to stop. This vehicle is only moving 10 feet at a time, so it can easily be restocked with a wagon and horses just bringing firewood or whatever to it. So it didn't need necessarily a large firebox. So of course I didn't put one. I put one seat in, and I'll give you a couple perspectives in this video. But this is a steam traction engine. Okay, here's another perspective. The controls on this vehicle, lots of gauges being that it's steam powered. I did put a steam trap or a door to fill the firebox. I don't know if you can see it. It's just left of the steering wheel. It does lift up. I really love that steering wheel. I thought that would be the perfect addition for this. Gauges. Don't mind the camera shake, and I'll give you a perspective. Okay, here's a seat. If you can see it, that would be the head engineer. He would sit there, and what he's going to do is he's reading all the gauges, and he's steering. And then there'd be a couple assistants. One would be running maybe throttle, and which is on or off, and then another one tending fire, or the throttle man would be tending fire. So there's only one guy necessarily sitting. I recently saw one of these steam traction engines in a antique tractor pull, and it was quite significant. The vehicle was a 1908 traction engine, so it's an American traction engine, and the what was given on its specs was it had 33 horsepower, which is 33 horsepower is pretty strong for a motorcycle. But this vehicle, the tractor probably weighed close to, I would say, 12 to 15 tons, which is right up there with a tank. So 33 horsepower. So how was it capable of moving anything with only 33 horsepower? Well, that's the beauty of steam, because it had 33 horsepower, but it had 37,000 pounds of torque, which means it would have no problems pulling your house off of its foundation and dragging it down the road. And you were saying, well, how's that possible? Your house isn't on wheels. Well, that's the beauty of torque versus horsepower. Torque is all low end, and it's just literally, this vehicle is like a train engine on wheels. A very small train engine on wheels, but yes, it's a train engine on wheels. So that is the most fascinating thing that I find about traction engines, is everybody is so happy with the performance of a diesel and its torque. There is no capability that a diesel can ever get to what a steam-powered vehicle is. So, and the modern ones, the one I saw ran on railroad ties. He was just burning anything he wanted in it. But yeah, and I've seen steam conversions now. They're running them on propane in England, because burning coal in them, or you could burn a hardwood and not get much emissions, but you burn coal in it, and somebody's going to complain nowadays. So this is my steam traction. Now, if you don't mind the shaky camera, I can show you. I did hook up some gear system on it. Of course, like any steam-powered motor, its beauty is that flywheel. So this flywheel, of course, I studied and put them together and put my gearing on this side. My worm gear is actually connected to it, if you can barely see it. So I did spend a little time building a transmission. Oh, there's a little more on the inside. They're pretty much parallel. And this is my flywheel here. And the beauty with a traction engine is they also use that flywheel for an auxiliary on something else. Combine, something, cotton gin, a sawmill. They could run anything that was they could put a pulley on, this traction engine could pull up to it. They'd put a giant leather belt that would have been, you know, the leather belts I've seen are upwards of 100 feet long, and they put a twist, one single twist, and they just ride on that pulley, and then they run a pulley to the other system. I saw one that was running a flour mill. They were rebuilding the wheel, the water wheel, on a flour mill, and a traction engine came and did its job and kept the flour mill going. And of course, this is a historical site, but I thought it was really interesting that they could shut off the water, rebuild the wheel, and still keep business going by using another form of antiquated vehicle. Instead of using water power, they had moved up, 700 years to steam. So I was so proud of them that they had found a compromise that wasn't going to running something electric. So I thought it was really fascinating. And then I have seen these with running lights on them. So they'll put a generator off the flywheel and run headlights on them to make them street legal. And in England, they still use steam traction engines. I saw one pulling a giant transformer. So I thought it was, look on YouTube. It's interesting to see. The vehicles are so slow, but the amount of torque is so great that if you only have to move a heavy object, say 10, 15 miles, use the traction engine, because the amount of capacity for weight you can pull is astronomical. So, yeah, this is another one of the Builder 13 obscure vehicles. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Have a nice day.